This episode of This Agile Life has been brought to you by BrilliantAgile.com, providing Agile and Scrum training, consultancy, and personnel.
BrilliantAgile.com. Done right, it's brilliant.
Recorded on Tuesday, December 4th, 2012, in St. Louis, Missouri. This Agile Life, Episode 8, Talent Swingers? Welcome to This Agile Life, a podcast about what it's like to be agile in the real world. Joining me today are my co-hosts after a long absence, Matt Corwell.
Hi, how's it going?
Good, Matt. How are you?
I'm awesome.
I see you every day, but I'm glad you're joining us here tonight on the podcast.
I see me too, and I'm glad I'm here.
I like that Matt gets a radio voice as soon as you're telling him he's recording. He's like, an octave deeper.
I don't know.
It's like when you go to England and you get the English accent.
Yeah.
And the other guy talking down there is Amos King. Amos, how's it going?
I love you, John.
You were just about to take a big drink.
Fabulous day. I took Friday and Monday off on a weekend that was 70 degrees here in Missouri, which is pretty awesome for December. So I picked
global
a good
warming.
weekend to take off, and I am like in today and ready to rock.
Cool. And last but not least, Mr. Jason Tice.
Hi, John.
How you doing, Jason?
Doing well.
Good. Thanks for dressing up. You got the tie and
It's part of the
Shirt
role
on.
of being the enterprise architect.
the evil enterprise.
Explicit.
The evil. Is enterprise architect? Is that a banned word now?
Explicit.
Then
We're going to have to
prescriptive,
tag this one now.
prescriptive guidance.
What are those? The seven deadly,
Seven deadly sins.
forbidden words of radio. One of them is enterprise architect. Well, that's a phrase, but
You know, that's a top 10 list I should make. The top 10 typical EA terms and things that architect
that you
type
should never
people
use around a
do
developer.
that should never be used in the Agile environment and/or that will get you kicked out of an Agile conference. I have experienced many of these.
that'd be a good list.
Yeah.
Prescriptive.
You should give a
guidance has
talk
to
on
be up
that
there.
at Agile 2013.
Which, by the way,
These are the things
they're
enterprise
called-
architects should never
you
say.
not to get into the news, because if you are romping and raring to submit an Agile 2013 talk, guess what?
We threw the news out.
Oh, well,
But go ahead.
I'm bringing the news back. I'm bringing the news back because call for presentations opens up the 10th of December. So just went
Already?
Up. Yes, already went up. So
Wow.
And for those that might have be interested, they actually back to the deadline back. Submissions are the second round. Last day to submit is the 1st of February this year. So
Ruby Midwest is open for call for proposals too.
okay, cool.
My Star East topic got rejected. Just wanted to let you know. Sad
Oh.
about that. I don't
You
think
should have plugged it here.
yeah, maybe. The 10 people that are the
122.
122 people could have helped out, I'm sure.
We're reaching the masses.
All
Changing
right,
hearts and minds.
let's jump into our discussion backlog. And, what do we have here? An article about the DevOps. So, Matt Corwell, you put this article in our show notes. Thanks for doing that. Appreciate it. We've all been busy, but you managed to come up with this article on DevOps. What do you guys think? Just quick poll around the room. Is DevOps an Agile thing? Is it becoming an Agile thing?
That's what I want. I want to ask Matt for 1 minute lightning talk on this is an Agile thing.
I think this is an Agile thing depending on your point of view on it, right? The article here, and I think we'll post it in the show notes, but the article is stating explicitly about DevOps teams as an intermediate layer between developers and ops and people doing a deployment of a code and release. I don't think that's an Agile thing, but I think the idea, and he quotes in the article, as you go through the article here, that writing deployment scripts, building the deployment system, getting things ready to go out the door is core developer work. And I think the developers owning that, understanding that, and being responsible for that from end to end is an Agile thing. It's me taking ownership incrementally of my entire system, believing that the system is not just the tests and the code, but the actual functional piece of the system. To me, that is what Agile is all about. It's the ownership and responsibility and incremental building of your system.
And we've already done this on the back end code, right? We rarely have a a back end guy, a middleware guy, and a front end guy anymore.
Right. We don't have a lot of DBAs.
We've pretty much combined all of that. We are full stack developers.
Right. And this is just the next progression of that. And doing that within the Agile processes. Well, okay. Let me not throw a word out that's going to get slammed down. But within the Agile mindset, we know what you mean. So we won't go there tonight. But see, the reason Noah and I supported this as a discussion is, to me, I have a much different viewpoint, and that is the reasons why we do Agile is to optimize the creation of value add capability, to optimize that value stream. What DevOps is
I have no idea what you just said.
Okay,
can you speak
Amos,
in English?
Okay, I will attempt to speak in Amos English.
There you go.
So Amos
English
is like Amish. You're a creative guy.
I'm not Amish. I'm an Amish developer.
He plays an Amish person on this podcast. Though.
But here's what this breaks down. So Amos, you're a creative guy. You have great ideas. You know how to talk to people, draw ideas on a whiteboard, and then you also have the technical skills to go build those out, writing tests and code. If I'm running the show here, or John's running the show, I want to have you doing that as much as possible because that's how you add value to the organization. What I don't want to have you doing is troubleshooting this and that because we have a non-standardized, error-prone manual deployment process. And so
But maybe with my ideas, I can take that non-standard deployment process and make it a lot better.
Right. I only want you to do that once. I don't want you to keep going back and keep having to go back and poke the log every time I want to do it.
Well, I don't want a single person going back and doing that all the time either.
Right. And I'm not advocating a manual deployment. I'm advocating against the idea of, when in a lot of scenarios a lot of people run into, I develop my code, I throw it over the wall, and someone else is supposed to deploy it, make sure it gets out right, get all the, as you said earlier, the nuances of it. And to answer your question about the value add, me saying, okay, I have the skills to build a feature, we need X, our software to do X, and that's my value add. If my software that does X doesn't get deployed, doesn't get out right, and sits in languages for 6 weeks, no value's been added at all. Yeah. So if I've got X done and I'm working on Y and Z and W, while X is still sitting there waiting to get deployed because someone else doesn't understand the intricacies of it, or some word like that, then there's no value added there. And to me, that's what I'm saying. I go like Kanban approach, right? You pull all the way across the board. The responsibility is for whichever queue is the furthest to the right. You want to get that emptied out and pulled through and get things moving. How is this any different?
And what happens when that becomes your bottleneck? Like you're ready to deploy the third version, and it's all still sitting there.
Well, or you haven't deployed version 1, and yet your customer wants version 3, and because of how you've some of us have lots of experience with that problem here, but because you have dependencies, you actually just can't deploy version 3 as the first version. You've got to roll 1, then you got to patch 1 to 2, then you got to patch 2 to 3.
And if you're throwing it over the wall, how do you get to a single click deployment? Because that's the ultimate goal.
Yeah, you can't. So I think to Matt's point, you can't get to a single-click deployment if you're throwing it over the wall. But let me go back to Matt's point.
You can't. It's harder.
Just to level set, I think it is agile and lean to have the team be responsible for, coding, pre-prod deployments, and prod deployments. I think that would be the leanest, most agile way to do it.
Own it. Well, and the spirit, like a boss.
Well, and in the spirit of Agile, be responsible, in the spirit of craftsmanship, take ownership of your work and follow it over the goal line as much as that's possible. Now, I loved this article that Matt cited because it actually talked about policy, and it talked about ITIL as a framework, which of course then gets codified into all kinds of policies we won't go into detail on. And it talked about Sarbanes-Oxley, which if you ever worked finance, that's a pretty well-written policy that if you're in that space, even as a technologist or as an Agile practitioner, you need to understand the policy because that is law. If you don't follow the law, you'll be in jail. And what those laws say is because we're doing something that's very important. So it's very important. So we must separate our concerns. So Matt, I love you. I trust you. You're an awesome developer. But you know what? In the case you get that awesome job tomorrow to go work somewhere else, I want to ensure that somewhere along the line we get John involved here, and John does something so we have continuity of process.
But if you make John the guy that's in charge of deploying, and Matt the guy that's in charge of developing, and Matt gets a job, John doesn't have anything to deploy anymore. So you've already screwed that up. You need to have the whole team approach. Get everyone involved. Lower that bus
number.
How
does that scale?
Well, let's talk about this as that's the baseline, though, that the whole team approach is the Agile baseline of the team does everything. Okay, that's our baseline. And then we can start to pare back from there in terms of reality. It can scale. So working back from whole team approach, best way to go, but what can we really live with? Because a lot of places aren't going to live with the developers touching production.
So what if we take more of a process-centric approach? And this is what I've seen.
What if we don't?
Well, this is what I've seen some DevOps. So this is where in some enterprises, the notion of where they have operationalized a dev train or something they call the release team or a release train team, box cars,
the DevOps team.
They have to have an entire team of people to release.
Well, but they do.
One
Okay,
developer.
but if you're a classically trained project manager or a BPM, a process guy or a process advocate, they do some very simple things that I'm going to propose there's some value. So these guys, what your DevOps teams do, the reason we say we don't need it, is they will take a step back and they'll say, okay, we got to get a lot of these different things into this standardized production environment. Because, hey, I'm an enterprise. I only want to have one environment. If you're an enterprise and you want to have a different discrete environment for each of your projects, you need to look at your balance sheet, because if you think you're on a sustainable course of action or a sustainable course, I don't think so. And guess what? If you optimize that, you could make more money, return more value to your shareholders and to your employees. So those teams come in, they say, okay, what's my landing zone look like? And they go backwards and they say, let's design a process and design the inputs that the dev teams need to provide. So basically we can just put it into whatever our deployment funnel is. And that DevOps team has had to make some assumptions and some compromises to optimize that process.
Now throw away the DevOps team and turn it into a single-click deployment, and you're done.
Well, and knowing that if you've done that, you could automate that process, and then you could do single-click deployments across the enterprise, provided your dev teams agree to align to the interface that's been designed to start that process.
So to that note, one of the things at the end of the article,
facto it works.
He says in here is that at the end he says, okay, I lied. Dev, you do need DevOps teams. And I think with what you just said is the middle ground, right? That having a DevOps team or having the people that you were discussing who are there and have to do stuff and are hindrance is not what we would want. But having those people who can be, as we said before, who are the guardrails, the bumpers, right? They can set the process up and help me walk through it. So I'm utilizing the inputs that they've given us, that they've set up, the one-click deployment they've set up, but I'm responsible for doing it. They help provide the framework to get it done in.
That way I'm not tossing it over the wall.
Right.
We're working together
I'm
as a
completely
team.
cool with that.
So let me ask a little, and again, we can go not into details, Amos, but once upon a time, you and I kind of worked together. We had this idea to do this notionally, like, hey, we're going to have a standardized software release process. But that means the developers have to agree to follow specific standards and kind of just ways to go. And everybody complains about that approach whenever that comes up. And I know... And to make this, we can do this as a role play. Since I'm the integrator, you're the developer. I'm trying to optimize the process. You don't like my ideas.
Standards need to be set by somebody who's actually doing the work and not by a guy who hasn't touched a keyboard in the last 6 months.
Okay. And knowing that's where, well, but to be fair, in large enterprises that use things like that have to use Sarbanes-Oxley or that choose to use things like ITIL, the people that end up running those processes, typically because of how to go learn the process takes you 6 months to go do that, then you come back and try to do it, and, well, we don't meet your time criteria.
Yeah, I mean, trying to learn that process just to get to the point where you can do a repeatable delivery of software, is that what some people are advocating for in places? Wait a second, I can't deploy any of your software, Jason, because I have to go take the ITIL certification program. When I get back, we'll deploy that. See you in 6 months.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying, but to denote that in large enterprises, because of in some instances, the policy requirements that are imposed by law, Sarbanes-Oxley is probably a better example of this because it is law. It's required in finance. You are just going to have people who, because Amos, do you want to go learn how to do Sarbanes-Oxley?
I can't even pronounce it.
Okay. So the enterprise has to comply. They have to have someone who's going to figure that out. And it's not you.
I guess I think I need more information about what that law is, because do you have to have someone separate deploying it, or does it mean that you have to have someone separate in charge of deploying, which doesn't necessarily mean that they're the person deploying it, like he's talking about with the DevOps team coming and sitting with the developers in order to get it deployed instead of tossing it over the wall to them. I think you're going to end up with a higher quality product in the end.
Okay. No, and I'll take that, knowing that's very much like a release team. So
right, and that to me that's the core feature here is the idea of the working together of the whole team activity. Right, we said in the beginning, and that nothing about what you said I disagree with, but I think that when we talk about the large enterprise, right, there's an article that's goes along with this that I wish now I'd have brought in describing Facebook, which is as computers go is a fairly large enterprise. They've got millions.
They don't have
of
very
users.
many users.
Yeah. That, they may not be a General Electric or something, but they have a pretty broad user base.
They have a large user base, but
right.
They're in a very unregulated market right now.
They may be, right, and that's where John talked about bringing this back to reality in things that don't work, but they're an article describing their deployment process, and it's just this. They have people who are in charge of the servers and the accounts and the access, but they work with the developers. The developer says, all right, I developed this code. I'm going to put it out there. Sit down with me. Let's cover the security issues. Let's I need access to the servers at this time. I'm going to be doing this to it. I'll see you on the flip side. And it obviously works. I mean, whether we like Facebook or not, they have a process. They've got a lot of stuff out there. And so that's a fairly large enterprise that does it, the almost theoretical version of what we're talking about successfully.
Well, or what about getting a couple people from each team, right? Every development team, you pick a couple people and they have an extra responsibility that they're part of the DevOps team, and then they're all together. You have a couple people from each team talking and coming up with the solutions that they can all
That's actually a really common
upon.
pattern.
And then, like you talk about Facebook, well, look at GitHub. Any employee at GitHub can deploy any of them at any time. So if it works for them and they're doing big stuff and dealing with lots of people and lots of data and all kinds of things and privacy and private repos, so I'm pretty sure they could get sued for quite a bit of money if they let somebody's private repo out. And it's working. It's working really well. So,
but they effectively have. I mean, the big difference here.
Communication is the problem.
Communication is the problem, or it's the key?
Well,
See,
communication
lack
could
of
solve
communication is
everything.
the
Lack of
problem.
I think we're
communication is the
talking
problem.
past each other because the thing that I'm envisioning is, hi, I'm GitHub, but GitHub is what, Amos? It's effectively one application. They have one product that they deploy in real time. I'm saying let's go back to like a corporate IT example. So I'm a company. I've got a custom built e-commerce app that is customer facing. I have a team that works on that. I have an internal facing intranet application for HR and doing performance reviews and employee. I have a collection of applications that ultimately are deployed to what I'm going to call a common infrastructure. But let's say I have two instances of that infrastructure. One is externally facing on the public intranet for my e-commerce and website. The other is I have it internal. It doesn't route externally. I want to keep them in same because I got a deal when I bought my hardware, my software that makes that go. And I've staffed my operations department so the people know how to maintain a common set of hardware. So now what that gets us to is, well, if we have that common platform, that common foundation, now we need to kind of optimize how we get stuff from all these different places that provide it onto that common infrastructure. And in that nature, I have all these different applications.
Yeah.
So,
But go back to.
I'm glad that you have one team that comes up with that so that you can limit the innovation. I mean, that's beautiful. That's what I want.
I love your idea.
Every company I work.
I like your idea of having the the rotating, call it the rotating, DevOps guy over time. And that's a neat, teaming and staffing construct to make that go in an organization where you can legally do that and you don't have.
I'm sorry, DevOps guys, but most of the time you don't need to be a full-time job for an organization unless it's gigantic.
Yeah, because
gigantic.
Well, or your enterprise is so complicated that you're always working through some level of improvement. So very much, you could say a DevOps team effectively could
or
operate
hiding and getting paid.
Well, or operate like a service bureau. So when use a soaring model. So when there's a problem, so we've built this beautiful deployment process. We have a team that came together, they built it, it's running. All the development teams have agreed upon a standard that they will comply to when they make a release package, because if they comply to that standard, it goes through the process automatically.
And now I have to write substandard software to make sure that I meet that standard for deployment.
Well, no. If there's the need to change that standard, then we would go through a change process, and we would say, hey, Amos, I just went to this new conference, and I have this awesome new idea I learned about that we can use to improve our our development and integration process. Let's swarm.
And in 2 years, we might have enough people agree that we can try it.
And there's potentially...
Well, no, but that's a governance issue. Okay, let's not... I mean, if we want to go there, let's go there, but...
Well, I think that's what DevOps is a governance problem. Like, that's what they turn it into by separating that team.
Yeah,
right.
and
instead of risk management, it becomes risk management theater, is what he said in the article.
There's SecOps too, right? Security operations. Why isn't that built into the team? Why aren't teams out there writing tests against security problems? Why is that not part of your automated build?
I would support that.
Security problem, we've got to fix the code that broke it,
DevOps, SecOps should all be part of your automated build process.
I'm not going to object to that. But how do you get there? Because what you guys are talking about, these are all great ideas and things that we agree here, and I think our listeners would agree we should all be doing these. But then go out and look at reality and why aren't we?
I think it's people tied to old ways. People afraid to do things they should be doing. People
and you're
stuck in the mud.
Amos, you're afraid. I don't think
I'm not, but a lot of people are.
It even says in the article, right? They link to a interview from Amazon's CTO. You build it, you run it. That's how Amazon runs their place, and you can't tell me that Amazon isn't as big and profitable.
They have a lot of products,
right?
A lot.
They do.
Lots of products.
They have an enterprise. You're right.
And
they need to worry about Sarbanes-Oxley.
Gone.
They need to worry about Sarbanes-Oxley. They need to worry about security. They need to. So there's of course the Agile. We all own it, but there's every shade of gray between that and what reality is. But I don't want reality to be...
People are afraid to tell that guy at the company that's been working there for 10 years that he's wrong because they're afraid they'll get fired.
Okay.
It's okay to be a martyr. Just shut up and do what you know is right. That's the big problem.
Nobody's ever got their head chopped off for that.
And see, we've gotten down to governance, policy, and really human factors issues. So again, this is... What's interesting about the whole DevOps space, and some folks have pontificated that it is a distraction around other problems. So you have change management, you have human factors, and you have resistance to new ideas and innovation manifesting in your organization. And DevOps comes in as a Band-Aid that you throw on top of those real problems, and you never solve the real problems. If you look at your balance sheet, that actually costs you more money.
The problems are always people. I mean, this is the very first thing in the Agile Manifesto is individuals and interactions, right? That they say that right in the Agile Manifesto. The very first thing, is a problem with getting you. You need to have smart people who are driven, who want to get the job done and want to do the best thing. Every piece of code they write that. Whether it's a piece to do deployment, a piece to do security, a piece to do testing, they write that code like it's going to be the last piece of code they ever write before they have to go to another company. It's the only code that they can show the next company that they might work for.
So Amos, and this is kind of a sidebar, but I think it's a really good segue. I'm going to propose, and I think all of us in this room have that as passion. I think you have it very well. How do you sustain that? So let's roll this clock forward 15 years.
I don't.
Well, no.
I mean, really, day to day, most of the time, I would say that I try to do that. But, some days I'm like, yeah, I know I just didn't write a test for that code.
But even today, I mean,
I just want to go home.
See, as a life coach, you did something really good today because you came in here and you told a personal story about how you had to rebalance, and you did that over the weekend, which is awesome. Which is awesome.
I wasn't trying to rebalance; it just seemed to happen.
No, it's good. And I think that's a key element of staying fresh. But I'm just right now, kind of if you look at the lifespan of where we are in the implementation and realization of the Agile Manifesto. I mean, how many years are we officially into it? Who's our
2001?
2001. Yeah. So it's 2012. We're going to call that our official date. So we're 11 years into it. How all of us who are doing this now, and some of us maybe have gone back to 2001, or even a few of us maybe were on the fringes when it started. Roll the clock forward 15 years. How are we going to sustain what we're doing and being like this, and we're not going to become complacent?
By only hiring and working with people that have the same amount of drive. That's whenever I fall down, it's either a lack of support structure around me to say, hey, no, we're not going to allow you to fall down. Or people around not not having that same drive, and then I just get tired of being the only guy who's like, "No, come on, let's do a good job," and I'm like,
so
It's just like you're in school with your pants off.
Real
and
life,
you're
real
just
life.
kinda
So
out there in the wind.
okay, but
"Okay,
real
a
life.
second.
that sounds like fun."
But real life, Amos. Okay, so real life. So Amos, I'll use a very simple term I think you'll understand from a customer perspective.
Understand simple
I'm going to
terms.
say, Amos, I'm going to say you're expensive because you have that passion. And, right now you look around, and as we've kind of talked before, I do a lot of work around, around the public sector. Real life, we got financial budget issues in this country, whether no matter what happens, everybody's being a little bit more fiscally responsible, and they're concerned about finances. How do you sustain an Agile-enabled workforce if you can't necessarily afford to bring in those people who have that passion we're talking about?
I think that you can get better customers if you have people that have that passion and you make a better product. You don't have to spend as much money on advertising, on marketing, and things like that. You get these quality people and you bring them in. If a guy can bring you $150,000 a year worth of revenue, you should pay him $140,000 because that's $10,000 a year that you weren't going to make without him. So just continue to do that. Grow in economies of scale.
I'm trying. See, that works. Okay, that works if you're. I guess that works.
I wish I got paid even close to
that works for our line of
I might
business as consultants. But I'm saying, okay, hi, I'm an enterprise. I'm a big. Let's use a corporate IT analogy. I want to do Agile. I want to have Amos come work for me. But my budget doesn't allow me to do that because I've been told by the CEO, cut your budget by 15%.
You have to figure out some kind of equation that is. What that person costs to what they can bring you, what they bring you in revenue. The same way that baseball does that before they offer a player a new contract. They have a mathematical formula that they use that says, okay, he brings us in $250 million a year. Let's give him $200 million. I don't even know how much baseball players make. That might be a little outrageous.
No, that's actually not bad. I mean, that's okay. But let me ask this then. So I go and I work a deal with my CEO, and I agree to break my hiring rules, and I hire Amos. Okay, so Amos, you're my rock.
I don't get paid that much. I don't know what you guys think.
You're my rock star. You're my rock star that I went on and hired. Okay, you're on my team, and you have to work with everyone else now, and they're not like you. And guess what? We immediately have an adversarial relationship because they see you as the rock star, and they see that they're not like you, and they're more than likely going to run from you. How do you?
Why does the rest of the team know
theoretical?
anything about what I'm getting paid?
No, I'm saying take the public knowledge of what you're getting paid at. The company hired you to come in and be the Agile rock star, the process mentor. I mean, these are things that a lot of enterprises do poorly. To say, hey, I'm doing Agile because I wanted to hire this one Agile guy that I read his blog online, and now I'm going to have this guy come in and mentor and make me Agile. And what they don't realize is from a change and expectation management viewpoint, they're doing everything wrong because people come in, Amos shows up, he's got new ideas. Unless you go through the rigors to socialize,
and there are going to be a lot of people who are angry when you come in and you say, "Hey, we're going to get rid of all of your cube walls." There are a lot of people who get pretty pissed off.
Yeah. Well, I mean to close this, because this is way off where we got from DevOps. So my bad. But I mean, I think this is
bad.
I mean, run the clock on this for a year. So I'll write myself a note to see where we are in a year on this. Is to see because I know
it's a podcast time capsule.
Well, no, I know guys. I know guys right now who are taking these jobs. I'm talking about Amos here. They are going out to be like the little Agile Zen master in a corporate IT environment, and they're going in basically where they're taking I'm going to say a higher end job.
You mean like the CTO consultants? Have you seen that?
Well,
CTO for hire for a short period of time.
The Bobs.
Holy crap, that is a job. I'm sure that you charge a lot of money for
that. Yeah. But what I'm saying is what is that? Is that going to produce that strategy? Going to produce a sustainable Agile transformation to the point that if you say hired Amos for a year and you go out, you're the process mentor, and then you vaporize.
You made a bad decision in hiring me and trying to get me alone to come in and change your entire company culture.
It's got to be holistic. I mean, it can't be just one person from the bottom up. And what I've seen,
and you can't hire somebody that's really awesome and then hire everybody else that's from the government. I'm going to throw the government under the bus because I can throw the government under the bus without getting yelled at by somebody else.
But the real life scenario is, and I guess we can talk the government or you can talk any corporate IT environment. These guys have live operations that if you use the government, I mean we're all regardless, even if you're not in this country, you're listening to us, you have a government somewhere that probably is responsible for some element of your social well-being. Here in the United States.
Not in Burma.
Here in the United States, obviously, our government is some way responsible to our social well-being. They need to sustain what they're doing, but they also have to deal with the fiscal realities to
and a lot
be
of
effective.
A lot of corporate IT tries to run like the government. Look, how many years' experience do you have developing?
Oh, you're gonna call me out here?
Yeah.
So I don't do. How do I reconcile my recent timing? We should take this offline.
No, just how long have you?
I would
Let's
ballpark
not-
me at a decade.
Okay, so you have a decade of experience. I got Bob over here who just got out of college. You guys both apply to the post office. You guys both get hired. You know how much you get paid? $55,000. You know how much Bob gets paid? $55,000. Period. There's no negotiating, and there are a lot of companies
that's a union.
who go out there. Not even union
That's a
companies.
union.
You
who
want
go
to
out
do
there,
unions?
But,
Oh man,
but
I'm
what?
just
what I'm
saying,
saying-
that's a union.
Is a union a whole team approach?
That's a different topic.
That's a whole separate podcast.
I'm not getting at the fact that they're a union. I'm getting at the fact that there are a lot of companies out there who hire developers along those same lines. They may negotiate more with you. The union doesn't allow them to negotiate at the post office. But there are companies who are out there and they're like, I'm not going to pay anybody over $60,000 a year. Okay, well, expect that you're going to get $60,000 a year.
Yeah.
That quality of a developer.
That's a business decision.
And I'm not saying that everybody who makes $60,000 a year is
Okay.
bad, but if you pay for $60,000 a year developer or you pay for $120,000 a year developer, you're going to get a very different quality of person. And if you're not getting a different quality of person, you better be either thanking God that you hired a $60,000 guy that's awesome, or you need to fire the $120,000 a year guy.
Okay, but to get us back, but here, let me
let's get back on track.
No, let's get back on track because we can jump right back on track from that statement.
Sorry.
So here's the issue. In the past, we've talked. There are no best practices. Sorry, Virginia. There are no best practices because it's the holidays, right? So
Very good.
the
Segue.
well,
I totally have no clue what that was, but keep going.
Yes, you do.
No, just keep
Hillbilly.
going.
He called you a
people are
hillbilly.
saying so. Thanks to Gartner and others, DevOps is the next magic pill. So I come
Of
in
course.
and I buy this shiny bullet, this expensive DevOps because it has to have all these expensive people that figure out how to make it go. And of course, that's where the hype cycle is saying that will solve all my problems.
All the hype cycles come with expensive people, right?
Exactly. And if you're an analyst, and you spin those up, you can make a career of that.
So that's right up Gartner's alley to be able to point to something and say that's a silver
Well,
bullet.
but that's what the market wants. The market.
Of course
I mean,
the
we
market
live in a
wants that.
capitalistic society where the market always wants the next magic bullet.
No, they want everything pre-chewed, pre-digested, wrapped in a pretty bow, and handed to them on a silver platter.
Easy.
Or what Amos said.
Not
Easy.
simple. Easy.
Easy bun. I'll tell you, they're the same thing. So
We
Did
had
he
that
just say simple and
conversation.
easy are the same
We
thing?
had- we don't-
He's totally
He's
fired.
walking into a
He's
mine-
not
landmine
allowed to be
there.
on this podcast anymore.
oh my goodness, I'm going to break out my lexicon in architecture frameworks, and we shall have war.
Oh my gosh, lexicon. I got
you
in
tell me what
trouble.
that word
I got in
means?
trouble in 5th grade for calling a kid Homo sapien. When I tried to argue it with the principal, she's
edit
like,
that out.
"You did
Edit
it on
that out.
purpose."
Edit that out.
She's like, "I know what it means, but you did it because you knew he wouldn't." I was like, "Well, I can't help it that he's stupid."
So you manipulated him. Great.
So they're bringing it back.
Bringing it back. So, I mean, my observation and what I've observed in the blog sphere over the past 6 months is that, and how people are reacting to DevOps in the market is that it is the next magic
Yeah.
pill.
But it's not. It's decidedly non-agile.
Well, and the fact if you're in an enterprise where your CTO or someone is saying, "Oh, look, we have to do DevOps," and he's running around with the Gartner white paper, blah, 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 or Forrester, whoever he likes.
Finally, he uses his non-radio voice. That's how Tice talks every
So
day.
wait a second, because that was just the Yoda voice. So the CTO is Yoda now?
Wait a minute, I have a Yoda voice? I didn't realize I have a Yoda voice. Okay. So
Edit that out.
Okay, so I'm an Agile, so we're all Agile practitioners here, okay? So we're in this enterprise. The CTO's running off the Gartner white paper saying, go do DevOps. What are your talking points to sit down and actually have a meaningful conversation with him to say that, sir, this is a great idea, and there is some technical neatness and sexiness in this DevOps thing. But supporting this, might be some other fundamental problems for which it might be better to invest in solving those problems before you just buy into the next shiny Gartner trend.
Yay!
I hate to say it, but I think what you just said was an awesome argument. Like,
Yeah.
And he
Wait,
used
did
my
you just say
favorite
it?
alliteration.
Yeah, I hate to say. You sound like Minnie Tice.
oh well.
I mean, that's a
He's growing a beard, so he wants to come be an architect.
so that's a starting point, and then continuing down the road of not sustainable, not scalable, expensive, overhead. These are all buzzwords that make C-level executives perk up their ears, especially expensive.
Well, the other thing we didn't really, I mean,
Waterfall is expensive.
So the other thing,
Just
then,
gonna keep saying that,
Okay,
and
so
hopefully it'll
you're
go
a
away.
real. So you guys and Amos, you're a lot closer to hands-on keyboard day-to-day development than I am. We can. That's a well-known fact. Let's leave it at that.
So what can we do to take an approach that's going to allow us to be more agile but still satisfy some concerns that clients often have or IT departments often have about access to production? I mean, I think the one thing that we mentioned is kind of a parallel team that integrates when it can.
If I'm a developer and I'm playing with those tools, it doesn't matter whether you give me access or not. I can get to it somehow.
Right.
There is some way for me to hide something in that code.
Yeah.
If you don't trust your developers enough to give them access to the production box, maybe you should look at hiring a new developer.
Well, and on that note, I got my mojo back. So where I was going was saying that what we're talking about, and this is you mentioned briefly, we don't have DBAs anymore. We have self, and the question is how does that work? Because some people would say that you need a DBA, especially if you're like maintaining a database farm. Where I'm going with that is how do you, if you're a developer, I guess this is my call to action to say that realize that there's always room for improvement. So you should be learning. If you're on a dev team and you don't know how your build works, go figure it out. The next time the build breaks, you volunteer to fix it. And if there's like the build guy or the build master who wants to go do it, like go kick him in the corner and force yourself to get better.
Yes.
Because that's the only way, and that gets you to be, Mr. High-Priced Amos over here. And I guess I just work with so many folks where I don't
How
see
did I
that
become
occurring.
Wait, I didn't get the memo that I was high-priced Amos. I got to figure out what my value add is.
Let's go, man. Well,
You have a high-priced ego.
next time, for our next episode of This Agile Life, we will make
job,
a
John.
value stream map of Amos. It will be fascinating.
Wait,
I'm not sure that
Tice is going to turn me into a graph.
I'm going to
This is awesome.
Yes, and then I'm going to make DODAF artifacts that explain the concepts, all viewpoints, and operational viewpoints within which you execute.
I'm not sure if he just insulted me or said I did a good job.
I turned you into an architecture project.
he's going to
So
boil
we
you
can put
you down to a
We can put
fishbone
you through
diagram.
this thing called configuration management.
Awesome. I could use some change.
I don't know where this leaves our audience.
Well, John, this is your opportunity to add closure.
It
You're
is.
supposed to.
Frame it.
You're supposed to keep these
Come
cats
on,
herded, John.
nail the post,
Or
man.
do we got time to talk about more stuff, or is this just so much fun? That's as far as we're going to go.
I mean, I don't think that this necessarily has to be over. I think we need to start putting some perspective on this and offering some suggestions, maybe.
I
or-
think we
just-
offered one.
I just went
which
on and-
was get a couple developers from every team, cycle them in and out.
Yes,
But,
and real life. Okay, so real life.
But
bigger
what-
team.
No, I
here-
want to hit that.
I want a
so-
suggestion for. I'm in a corporate world, and I'm absolutely not getting any access to. I can't have any access by our bylaws, by our corporate policies to production.
Implement a bug. A bug that's really hard to find.
I
without
love
access
that.
to
I
production.
reject
that
that
idea is funny.
recommendation.
That's a
I go to
funny
Matt
The
Corwell.
views of this.
Make deployment such a pain in the ass for the deployment team that they're like, I need your help, and then you start communication with them.
Well, or the other one. Oh, no, you go, Matt.
Or you get fired.
How about
One
a
or two.
how about a better proactive approach? Yeah.
It's to put this into practice in that lockdown corporate environment. It's not something I have a lot of experience in. I've avoided lockdown corporate environments on purpose. So I don't know that I can give any direct recommendations other than socializing these views. I guess finding ways to discuss them, to bring them up, to get them to be a part of the consciousness of the people you're involved with, the people you're interacting with. Whether it be up the chain or horizontally, either way, to get them at least thinking about these issues, so that when there is when the things that Amos was just misguiding us on, happen.
I was misguiding on purpose.
Do happen, in actuality, maybe those issues can come up, and it may be a slow process, but I gotta think the communication is the first step there.
What about
here's
whenever
what I
you're
propose.
afraid that you'll get fired if you communicate those things? Because that's
I don't know,
happens
like
in great big corporate
What
environments.
if?
Yeah,
Here's what I
No,
propose, though.
that's a real concern in a big corporate
I
environment. That's
think
where
it is.
people don't communicate things up because they're afraid they're going to get
Well, we
let
can't
go,
fix corporate
or it's
America
going to be
with one
he
podcast.
versus
I mean,
she.
that's a
so.
pretty big.
Well, I'm saying, is there a way to socialize these things without putting yourself so much out there?
Yeah.
Because people will probably feel more comfortable to socialize their ideas if they can do that.
Won't it be easier if I make it really, really simple for you? If you're an ops guy, and I make it just dead simple, very repeatable, lean. I do just enough to make it a simple, repeatable process. I mean, isn't that like step one in this?
Well, you're
As
assuming
a developer,
So
And to beat down and to wear well the path from here to production.
You're assuming that you have communication with the guys,
and you're
that are
assuming you have
deploying.
control
Yeah.
of that.
So
too.
The
make-
DevOps guys, you don't always have communication with.
Why not? Get
Because
communication.
you gotta have the separation
well,
of
I wanna-
concerns because we have the security matters and we know what you're
Separation
talking
of
about.
concerns has nothing to do with level of communication.
Oh, I
I
can.
want
break,
you to know I had my shoes off this whole time, but I wasn't chewing my
I
toenails.
can break
or
that real quick.
Eating my
so
toe
hi,
jam.
hi. So
Why not?
John, you and I, let's say we work together in a very acquisition sensitive environment. You have a contract by which you do operations work. I have a contract by which I do development work through different business
But
partnerships.
this is just political bullshit.
Well, but this
and
is reality.
contracts.
This is reality, and it's law.
If
and
I cut right through it,
Fight the power.
Me and the real person on the other side can work this out without all the shenanigans and meanderings and
Okay, but you
You have to
complicated-
get access to that real person, though.
but as
that
it-
sometimes is not easy.
And sometimes there are ramifications if you talk to them. That is, guess what? You just violated an NDA, and guess what? Either the contract's void, the person's off the. I mean, those are the realities. And I agree. That's all in effect. I mean, there's logic and policy for reasons which we have that governance. However, those were based upon traditional industrial era standards and practices, which the speed at which technology is evolving and allows us to build things that add value to the enterprise. We don't need those governance structures need an overhaul. They don't scale.
Of course.
And
absolutely.
to give a crass and a bit smart-ass answer, I mean, to someone who's stuck in that environment and wants to implement these things or wants to do these things, hey, if you don't like it and you can't change it, find yourself an environment who can. If you got I would say if you got the passion and the desire, the knowledge to want to be doing these things, there's somewhere else that will appreciate that skill set and value that if the place you're at is not right for you. I mean,
you'll
I know
probably
that's-
get paid more.
That's a big step, and we've all been there. Like sometimes you just can't leave, but maybe that's how you address it.
So-
Is you use that skill set where it's valued.
So you try to address the problem, and if it doesn't work, you speak with your feet.
Yes.
Yeah, why not?
Or rolling back about 3 minutes to where kind of you were going. Is I wanted to propose that what you were describing in terms of what do you do if you have this problem, this is an opportunity for architectural excellence. In terms of step one, go ahead and build an influence diagram of the players involved.
Corwell's eyes just got glassy.
No. You said, you said go figure out who you need to talk to, who's in charge. And this is something where Agile breaks down because a lot of times we don't put enough emphasis on that and we don't realize that we might think we know who's in charge or we might think we know whose responsibility that is, but then we realize, oh, it's wrong. So that's hard to do. And if you haven't done that legwork to say, okay, this is the person we need to kind of figure out how to talk to and get to say, yeah, we really need to talk this. And then the other thing in terms of Agile, where this is going beyond just traditional influence strategy, is saying get your customer involved. Have your customer, the person who this broken process will have them go talk to those stakeholders and have them give some feedback, and that might help because if the message comes from the person who's actually being impacted by these challenges, there might be more credence to that message.
I think that's completely valid.
But there's a lot of work to do that, to figure that out, and it kind of goes way beyond hands on the keyboard, pounding on the code, unless you're in a small environment.
I was trying to get to that answer when I was bugging John over here and being devil's advocate, saying that you just put some bugs in the code or something to make it a pain in the butt so that somebody will talk to you. I was trying to get to.
Well, you need to
go out there and you're the only. If you're the only voice of reason, you need to make yourself heard in one way or another. And
anyways, what I love about you, your approach, shock and awe, because that's shock and awe. You
but I wouldn't
intentionally
really
crash the server because that will get everyone in the boardroom.
I'm not really like that though.
People really appreciate that. when I worked for
I don't like getting fired like that.
A small
that's
website
not cool.
in the late 90s, and a guy actually called us on the phone and said, "Hi, I'm with security consulting. I was able to hack your server for a minimal fee. I'll be glad to tell you how I did it and return control to you." And we were not real wild about that, but yeah, it's kind of similar to Amos's.
That sounds like
guidance.
a lawsuit.
That's very shock and awe. Yeah, you
That
could
is shock
blow
and
him up in court.
I mean,
So-
yeah, I would never do anything like that. I don't need to get fired. Like, that's the
We
last thing
we
that I
can
want
get
to do.
fired.
Well,
far
but
before
again,
that.
but from Agile, what's funny is, and as us as consultants, one thing, and sometimes especially, I guess the things that I've learned to think about in recent years, not so much us even taking things over the goal line. How do we empower our customers and the stakeholders that we're supporting to take these ideas and they take it over the goal line? Since in some,
I think that's an awesome idea.
in some environments, like, you as a consultant, you might not be able to go into the meeting where they're going to make the decisions. And you have to empower your customers to go do that. As a standard overall, if we did that across the board, it really allows our customers to set us free, but a lot of consultancies have that as part of their business plan. They want to help someone get better, help them achieve their objectives, and then move on to the next opportunity.
Even if you're not directly talking to the CEO of that company that's hired you as a consultant, if you make the people that you are directly talking to look good, you will continue to have a job. And you will continue to get paid more and get more contracts.
And I'm genuinely wild about what you just said because, I mean, with Agile, we say, I'm going to write these tests. How's this going to affect the customer? What's their minimum marketable feature? All these things. What's my customer viewpoint? And frankly, in this entire discussion, I've been thinking about me as a developer and how my life will be easier, the pipeline will be easier, the product deployment will be easier. But empowering the customer to want these things to be easier and simpler, or even the same thing, is pretty cool. Like I hadn't really
Isn't that like the bottom of this where he talks about what the DevOps team role is, which is to help the developers?
Yeah.
I mean, really, the DevOps team's job is partially to learn from the developers too, which if your customer, if you can get them to do that and you can communicate with them well enough, then you both learn from each other and you both make each other more happy, and in the long run, it's good for everybody.
Well,
everybody has hugs.
Well, the other little pragmatic advice I was just
We should have a group hug tonight.
kind of building on what you said, Matt, is it's this idea of
Putting you in the middle.
And again, this comes from the guy who's not intimately involved with code on a day-to-day basis. If you're on an Agile team, and if you can, challenge yourself to do something that challenges you to walk a mile in your customer's shoes. Go out and watch them, touch them if you can. I know before we start, if you listen to the pre-show,
Touch their shoes.
well, no. If you
That's
listen to the
cool.
pre-show,
I'm okay with that.
We were talking about there's some blog
Show
posts
title.
we had about doing like cross team pairing, trading up people. Amos has talked about it in episode 5. We've talked about this idea of having like a little team swap. But do that with your customer. And I know
a good
there's
idea.
challenges to do it, but it will put things in perspective and it'll help you understand their pain.
Talent
it adds
swingers.
credence to this.
Talent
That would be an
swingers.
awesome consulting company name. Talent Swingers. I like that.
I think that's going to have to be the final word on this topic tonight.
Oh, now we get to do picks. Or did we get rid of that too?
No,
Tice is
we're-
so full of energy. Tice,
We're going to go right
you go
into our
home tonight?
picks. Matt Corwell, you're first with your picks tonight.
man, he's
I've
not
got
gonna let me jump in.
my stuff's scrolling all over the place. There you go. I've got 2 picks. One is an article on 8th Light's blog about Uncle Bob Martin's transformation priority premise. It's essentially applying Agile's last responsible moment and pushing the decision making as far as possible to building up your test in TDD fashion, which is pretty interesting. And also 2 websites to view: codingkata.net and pecsforfun.com. Both of them are online Code Kata development quiz test, just a little personal training kind of thing, daily look at and see if you can solve the coding puzzles.
Oh, so you can get better.
Well,
Because
only if
there's
you win.
always
Yeah.
room for improvement.
Sometimes.
No, there is.
Jason, what are your picks?
Amos, how many picks do I get this week?
What are the rules, John? 2?
It doesn't matter really, right?
Fine.
Because he does what he wants.
You can have 165.
He needs prescriptive guidance on the number of
guidance.
picks.
No, I need
165.
quantitative acceptance criteria. I'm gonna
If you
pick
don't have 165, then you can't say any of them.
epic fail. I'm going to just pick one then, actually, and that is a lot of our. If you liked and you were emotionally or intellectually aroused by our discussion tonight, which was kind of all over the Agile governance space,
And seek help.
there's a blog out there that I found a while back. It's called Disciplined Agile Delivery. We'll put the comments in the show notes. It really talks about how you take all these, very, very, hands-on tactical Agile things and then attempt to execute them within the rigors of policy and law, which is where, as we discussed tonight, all of this breaks down very quickly because you get all these different stakeholders and influencers involved, and they have absolutely no idea what's going on and what we're trying to get done here. So lots of great ideas there about where the community needs to go going forward.
Any other picks?
My only other pick is I called it a saved round, or as some call it, an alibi, which is a little pattern that sometimes occurs at the end of the stand-up meeting. Well, you'll go around the circle, and if anyone was kind of holding one back, you can fire it for fun. We could debate that as a good thing or a bad thing. So I need to finish the show notes for episode 5, and John needs to throw me out the window here.
I will.
I haven't had a chance to do that. And for the people out there that say when I say throw it out the window, I have an issue, we can talk about that offline. They know who they are.
Defenestrate?
Pardon me?
Defenestrate.
Oh.
You don't know what that is, do you?
No, I don't.
Yes! I have a word that Tice doesn't know.
Google it right
Defenestrate means to expel from a window.
Really?
It's German.
Yeah, so I can
Fenster.
defenestrate a TV.
From Fenster.
There's a whole word for that?
Yes.
Well, D
Isn't that awesome?
that's a
Defenestrate.
German word.
Word of the day.
Okay, my picks.
Web methods, software AG, you love Germany.
God. I already made fun of them once. We're going to get fired for this.
Edit.
sponsor
Edit.
us.
Would Software AG like to
Edit.
sponsor the Agile podcast? So I actually had two completely, a lot of people would say non-technology related picks, but I think that they are very much technology related picks because I think they will make you a more rounded person and a better developer. No, not coffee this time. I originally put playing with your children, but really, I mean, just if you don't have children, hanging out with your children is awesome. Just do it. If you don't, hang out with your family, hang out with your friends. Just get out. Don't sit and dwell on technology. Sometimes that outside influence can make you learn quite a bit. And
That's kind of the be well-rounded.
Be well-rounded.
Right?
That's absolutely. Well, and my second pick, it really goes along the same thing is actual reality. Go outside, skip TV and video games for a month. I haven't had TV since 99, so for 13 years. It was the most beautiful thing I ever did. I did it because I was going to fail out of college if I didn't get rid of the TV, and I've never looked back. I don't want TV. Hate it, but I mean, really, just take some time. Skip those video games. I know a lot of us like to play video games.
Does iTunes count
Just
if you watch
get
shows
away from
online?
them. Yes.
But even if you skip
Well,
TV,
I do
don't
watch
skip
shows
podcasts.
online
Yeah,
once in a while.
see, you cheat
Don't
because the
skip
market's
this edge
changing.
light.
But I don't do it very often, and I didn't do it for years.
Okay.
I probably watch something online once a week.
Okay.
It's okay,
If
though,
that.
if you listen to this Agile Life podcast because it's mind expanding.
It is okay. You can do that while you're at the park,
Yeah.
pushing your kids on the
Playing
swing.
with the kids.
That's right.
Yeah.
Or
So,
driving on the highway with your kids in the car when Amos drops the
With the
F-bomb.
explicit episode.
Yeah, I can't
Great
believe you
one,
download a podcast that says explicit. You're like, hey, my wife and kids are in the car. Let's hit play.
This will be okay for the 4-year-old.
This would be awesome.
What
You can
happens if you don't have any
You
tests?
can put me up on the
Epic
wall of
fail.
stimulation at your house. How about that?
Wait a second.
Amos, I was going to say, teach your kids how to use a Kanban board.
Or an abacus.
My kids do.
We did the abacus to learn the potty training. It worked out great. So
Yeah, so just get out and do something. Get away from the computer. Get away from screens. Just run from screens for a while.
Good advice.
Do
I like
that. Do that for a month.
Glowing
when you're not at
rectangles
work, run from screens.
bad.
I don't know if you guys ever played World of Warcraft, but even the load screen on World of Warcraft would give you a tip. You know, sometimes it's even good to get away from World of Warcraft and go outside for a while in the real world.
Like, have you
install
played a Wii?
Wi-Fi.
The Nintendo Wii.
Yeah.
I love it because you'll start up a game and it's like, hey, why don't you go outside?
Really?
Yeah,
I
it
haven't
like
seen
suggests things all the time. That you've been playing too much. You go to switch games and it's like, hey, why don't you go outside for a while?
that. Nice. All right, my pick. The Pomodoro technique. This is a time management technique. I don't know.
The
if you guys-
tomato?
Really? No, I thought that was on the menu
Yeah.
at the Macaroni Grill.
It is the. I mean, it gets its name from the tomato, but it's a technique for managing your time. So
You say tomato, I say pomodoro.
nice. So check it out, pomodorotechnique.com. We'll have the link in the show notes, of course. I only had one pick.
You can
so-
give a quick rundown of it?
Tice, if you want to, no, I know I want people to go out and check it out.
Do you want me to go write some more show notes?
There's a book for it too by the guy that created it. It's pretty.
Yeah. I mean, the website has all the info and take a look at it.
Programmers, I think, has it in a print form that you can get it to.
Yep. There's also the Pomodoro technique, which is just based on.
Oh, that's at the Olive Garden, isn't it?
No, but that's interesting because this technique says, every time you have to pee, get up and walk around for a little while, stretch your legs. Pomodoro technique. So
that comes with the endless soup, salad, and breadsticks.
That's
well
like,
played,
I elect
sir.
to park in that parking garage over there on the top floor, so I get to go climb the stairs.
Walk. All right, guys, that's all we have time for today. I'd like to thank a number of people. Rich Johnson for providing our intro music. Dan Schwabe for providing our outro music. Our audio engineer, Dr. Lee McCauley. Adam Axe for some of the sound equipment. And you all for listening to the show. I'd like to also thank my co-hosts for joining me today. Matt Corwell, where can people find out a little more about you and all the great stuff that is Matt?
I'm on Twitter at Matt Corwell. I forgot my password, though. I haven't logged in a while. I should probably do that.
You
You said that like 4 episodes ago.
Yeah, it's been a while.
I like that, man.
I'll get to you and your website.
I want to go next because I'm Jason Tice, and people can't find me online because I'm just out of the loop because I'm slammed with stuff. So I'm like you, man. Thumbs up.
Did you? What are you?
Because they've been
Matt
outside.
Yeah, at Matt Corwell. Right.
Yeah, serious. Or
Jason?
off the grid.
Tice Thoughts?
Tice Thoughts on Twitter, but it's inactive. I got, like Amos said, I'm doing my own balancing act. It's the holidays. We have our holiday Kanban board up, though. It's working great, so
You've totally got to put a picture of that up on the website.
we'll do that.
We do need that for the website and Facebook.
Yo.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. We put
Yo.
it for fun. I'm trying to figure out how to put it on Ionic and do it on Ionic, but I thought that was cool. That thing actually works. So neat.
Amos?
I totally should have picked Urban Dance Squad.
Where can people find out more about you, Mr. 80 Cron?
Outside. I-44. I'm there every day for 4 hours. If
In
anybody would
traffic.
like to hang out.
Uphill both ways in the snow.
In the snow. No shoes.
Right.
Dirtyinformation.com. You can find old blog posts that never change. And I'm on Twitter at 80KRON and GitHub also. Best places to find me are probably GitHub or Twitter because I don't have to think much for 140 characters, 170 characters.
Or
whatever,
I-44.
Whatever the hell it is. I don't use an iPhone.
I-44.
Oh, I-44. I think
No
it's an
thinking
iPhone.
there either.
No thinking there either. I've driven that 2 hours for 5 years. Yeah. People ask me about what towns I pass, and I'm like, hell, I don't know. I live in this town and I work in this town. Everything in between is desert, according to me.
So quick cross promotion if you like iOS development, check out our iOS podcast called iOS Podcast.
Self-promotion.
You just walked on my self-promotion. And I'm John Sextro. You can find me on Twitter at JCSextro, or you can find me on the web at johnsextro.com.
And you actually have fresh content. Yay for you.
Thanks, Jason.
Good job, John.
Thanks. Guys, thanks for listening, and keep living this agile life. Happy holidays.